Yo, what is going on everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is your boy Jay bringing us a brand new video, and in today's videos we are going to be doing week 2 NFL game predictions. Week 1 of the NFL season has come and gone, and I went 11-5 in my game predictions last week. Pretty good start to the season, not very bad at all. The only games I got wrong were the Chargers, Bears, Seahawks, Vikings, and Bengals. I predicted all of them to win their games, and I was actually pretty surprised the Seahawks won. The Seahawks and Vikings were two locks I had for last week, and I was pretty surprised they lost. The other ones I knew they were going to be close, but ended up going 11-5. So not bad. Pretty good start to the season. 11-5 for my week 1 predictions. Moving on to week 2 though, and I will say real quick too, I did not get a video recapping week 1. I'm probably not going to be doing any weekly recaps, at least for the first 8 weeks of the season, just because after school I'm in a sport right now and I don't really have time to. So I'm probably going to be doing weekly predictions. I'm recording this on Wednesday, getting out Thursday morning. I'm probably going to do my weekly predictions, get some videos out Saturday regarding college football. I think I'm going to start doing some college football videos. I'm a big Ohio State fan, so maybe cover some of that. Get my, like I said, predictions Wednesday, and then I'm going to be doing some short videos, YouTube short videos on Sunday, just covering the games and covering all the big hot topics. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing, at least until I can start doing my weekly recap on probably Tuesday, because I don't really have time right now. But I will continue to do my weekly game predictions. So here we go with week 2. So starting off with the Eagles versus the Vikings, I don't think this is going to be a close game at all. The Vikings looked horrible last week offensively. There was really no offensive stability and rhythm versus an okay Buccaneers defense. The Eagles defense is much better, and I think they put up a lot of problems for this Vikings defense. In terms of the Eagles offense, I think they get rolling. They kind of were a little slower last week versus the Patriots defense, but the Patriots do have a phenomenal defense, and it was a pretty rough game in the rain. So I think this Eagles offense gets rolling Thursday night tonight versus the Vikings defense, which is horrible, and I do think they get a pretty big win over the Vikings. I don't see it being very close at all. Next up, we have the Buccaneers versus the Bears. The Bears coming off of a very embarrassing loss versus the Packers. The Bucs coming off of what many would call an upset win over the Vikings in Minnesota. I have the Bucs in this one as well. I think the Bucs actually are one of my sleeper teams this year. I think offensively, if Baker Mayfield can perform at a level that's even just consistently good, I mean, they have enough. They have a solid offensive line. They have a pretty good receiving core: Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. And then defensively, they have a pretty good defense as well. So, and they really showed that last week. The defense last week looked great versus a pretty good Minnesota offense. The Bears did not look good at all. Horrible offensive line. Justin Fields really did not look great. The defense looked horrible. The secondary and defensive front both looked awful. And I do have the Buccaneers getting a pretty big win over the Bears. I could see this game being a little more high scoring if the Bears offense does get rolling. If Justin Fields can kind of get settled down and get more composed and kind of start connecting with DJ Moore, I do think this offense could be unlocked pretty quickly. But until then, and until this offensive line gives Justin Fields more than a second in the pocket, I think it's going to be a Buccaneers win, especially with the Buccaneers having a pretty good defensive front. I think they get a pretty easy win over the Bears. Next up, we have the Falcons versus the Packers. This is going to be another good game. I think this one a lot of people are kind of split on. I think a lot of people have the Packers winning just because of the big win they had last week. I like the Falcons, though. The Falcons coming off of a 24-10 win over the Panthers. I really like the Falcons. I think they're going to be a much harder test than the Bears were. They look good. They have a great offensive line. The run game looks great. Bijan looks phenomenal. Tyler Algier even looked good last week. The running game looks awesome. Defensively, they looked pretty good. They have a really good secondary. Jesse Bates looked great, which was kind of a under-the-radar signing for them, I thought, over the offseason. And really, I think the Falcons I'm going to go with. I think they get, I don't know if you'd call this an upset win or not, home win versus the Packers, but I do think they kind of make a statement and say that they can compete with some of these teams. And I know it's not a big statement, but I do think they get a pretty big win over the Packers. I think the run game does great. I think we will see Desmond Ridder throw the ball a lot more in this game. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think the Packers, I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers win, but I do have the Falcons winning, but I will be expecting Desmond Ridder in this passing game to start rolling as well, just because I think it's going to be a closer game. But I am excited to see this run game go up against a pretty good Packers defensive front. But I do have the Falcons winning. I think this one will be a little more low scoring. I could see them winning 24-20, something like that. But I do have the Falcons winning at home versus the Packers. Next up, we have the Lions versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks, I don't know what happened to them, but they looked horrible versus the Rams. I think a lot of people had them winning at home versus the Rams, who a lot of people are not expecting to be very good this year, especially without Cooper Kupp. I have the Lions winning this one. The Lions went into Kansas City and won. I know Travis Kelce wasn't there. I know Chris Jones wasn't there, but it doesn't matter to me. Going into Arrowhead and beating Patrick Mahomes on a primetime game is a big enough statement for me to have the Lions winning over the Seahawks. I mean, even if the Seahawks get rolling and kind of look like how they did last year and how people are expecting them to look this year, I still have the Lions winning. I think this offense is going to be great, and I think the offense is only getting started. I think Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's a great wide receiver quarterback duo. Defensively, they looked pretty good. Aiden Hutchinson looked like he's going to have a big year too, just based off of last week, constantly getting to Mahomes, especially against Juwan Taylor, who was 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage every time. And I'm very excited to see this Lions team. I do think they get the win over Seattle. I could see Seattle, like I said, bouncing back. It could have been a week 1 slump. We saw a lot of those last week. But even if they do, I do have the Lions over the Seahawks in this one. Next up, 49ers at the Rams. I don't think this one needs to be talked about too much. The 49ers looked amazing, really all over the field last week. The only concern I have for them is the offensive line. It was a little questionable. I know they were going up against the Steelers and that defensive front, which is an absolutely nasty defensive front, and I do think they will get better. But the offensive line was a little concerning. Defensively, they looked phenomenal, absolutely locked down on all areas. Offensively, they looked great as well. Brock Purdy looked great. And the connection he had with his receiving core, Christian McCaffrey, looked great. The Rams actually did look really good, though. I mean, Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell both going for, I think, 119 yards. They looked great, and I do think they will fill the role of Cooper Kupp being gone pretty well, at least in the time being. Matthew Stafford looked great. The defense looked great, but let's be realistic. I do have the 49ers going in and ending that little, upset or whatever they had last week, and I do have the 49ers beating the Rams. Next up, the Giants versus the Cardinals. The Giants lost 40-0 on Sunday night last week. That was a game I don't think anyone was expecting. I think a lot of people had them losing, but not 40-0. Offensively, they looked awful. Really, defensively, they looked all right, but offensively, they had the pick six, and then they had the block kick return for a touchdown, and it was a disaster. Just every way you look at it for the Giants. I don't think that dictates how the season is going to go for the Giants. I still think they're a pretty good team, and I think they definitely get the win versus the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I will give them credit. They did look better than I was expecting them to look last week versus Washington. However, I don't see them beating the Giants. I really don't. I think the Giants definitely get back on track and take the Cardinals out, and the Giants get to 500. And then finally, our last NFC column, we have the Saints versus the Panthers. Bryce Young looked all right. It was a bit of a struggle game for the Panthers. It's a very young team, a lot of new pieces to that offense, and I do think it will get better. However, the big loss is J.C. Horn, expected to miss multiple weeks now with an injury. That is killer to that secondary, and I do think Derek Carr and this offense definitely benefits from it. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, without that stability there in J.C. Horn, I think the Saints... I think the Saints win either way. I do have the Saints winning. They looked pretty good offensively, defensively. They looked good all over the field last week, taking on the Titans, and I do have them beating the Panthers. I think the Panthers, they have a bright future. Bryce Young looks pretty good. Obviously he's going to have his rookie turnovers and his rookie mistakes, but overall, I do have the Saints winning. They look great defensively, offensively, finally having some stability at quarterback in Derek Carr, though. Michael Thomas actually looked pretty good last week. He looks like he's finally back. Chris Olave looked great. And I am very excited to see the Saints team this year, and I do have them winning over the Packers to advance to 2-0. Moving on to the AFC versus NFC column, we have the Jets taking on the Cowboys. Now, the Jets coming off of a major blow to their season and Aaron Rodgers being out for the whole year after just 4 snaps as a Jet. I think that is a major morale killer. They did get the win, though, with Zach Wilson at quarterback, and the quarterback for pretty much the whole game. That was a big win, but I do think that was largely in favor to their Jets defense. Their defense is incredible, but so is the Cowboys, and I do have the Cowboys winning this game. I think this could be a very low-scoring game, both fantastic defenses. The Cowboys defense looked incredible last week. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, fumbles, and just everywhere they were amazing. I'm pretty sure almost every drive they had some sort of turnover. I could see them winning. I seriously could see this being like a 20-17 win. Pretty low scoring, both great defenses, but I don't think this Jets offense keeps up with this Cowboys offense. I think that's the big difference, but we'll see. Zach Wilson, he has been mentored by Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Robert Saleh has spoken very highly of him. So, like I said, we'll see how he goes. We'll see how he looks, but I do have the Cowboys winning this one over the Jets. And then the Commanders taking on the Broncos. I'm actually excited to see this game. I think this is going to be kind of I think this could be a very underrated game for both of these teams. I think the Commanders, they looked all right last week. They had their offensive struggles, but that's to be expected with, a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, a lot of new pieces to that offense. The Broncos really did not look great at all. They looked how they looked last season, very just sloppy and slow on offense. The defense looked great, but offensively they looked pretty slow in their 17-16 loss over the Raiders. I had the Commanders winning this game. I've seen some people go with the Broncos, which kind of surprised me. I've seen a lot of people leaning towards the Broncos, but I think this Commanders defense is so good this year, and I don't know why I'm very high on it, but I am very high on this Commanders defense, especially against the Broncos offense that has really struggled. I think this Commanders pass rush and defensive front causes a lot of problems for Russell Wilson this game. I like the secondary. Emmanuel Forbes looked great last week. He had the pass breakup on 4th down to win the game for them. So I think that's going to be the big factor here is the Commanders defense. And I like Sam Howell. I'm still very high on him and this Eric Bieniemy-led offense. And I do think they kind of start to click and start rolling against this Broncos defense. And I think it'll be interesting to see how they go. But I do like this. I think they will take a big week 2 leap. And Sam Howell will kind of get into a rhythm. And I do have the Commanders over the Broncos. Moving on to the AFC column, starting off, we have the Chiefs at the Jaguars. This is going to be a very, very good game, and I'm very excited to watch it. I'm excited to see these two teams go back at it after the divisional round last year. I think it's going to be a very high, emotional, and electric game for the Jags, especially after losing in Arrowhead last year in the divisional round. Now it's a home game for them, possible revenge game. However, with Chris Jones just announcing a new 1-year deal, he is officially back with the Chiefs. Travis Kelce most likely suiting up. It looks like he's most likely going to be playing for the Chiefs as well. I cannot bet against this Chiefs team anymore. I bet against them last week and I was right, but they didn't have Chris Jones. They didn't have Travis Kelce, who, let's be honest, were major losses, and it was shown in the game. The Chiefs receivers looked horrible, and the defensive front for the Chiefs really looked bad without Chris Jones. I wanted to say I was going to pick the Jags here. I wanted to pick them really bad, and I still think there's a chance. I still think there's a chance this Jags offense goes crazy here. I'm very excited and high on this Jags offense. I'm excited to watch Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence and this, Travis Etienne offense. I'm very excited. I think it's a really good offense, but with Travis Kelce back, who I think could see 20 targets this week because of how bad the receiving core is besides him, and Chris Jones there on the defensive front to give them some stability and to finally get some pressure on the quarterback, I cannot bet against Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones anymore. I do think they get the win, but I do think it's going to be a game that comes down to the wire. I do think it's going to be a close game, but I cannot bet against Travis Kelce, I cannot bet against Patrick Mahomes now that he has Travis Kelce back, and I can't bet against his defense that now has Chris Jones back on the defensive front. The defense actually looked pretty good last week versus the Lions too, and now they have Chris Jones back. So I want to say the Jags are going to win, but I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes anymore. So I do have the Chiefs winning in that game. Moving on to the Bengals versus the Ravens. This game, the Bengals lost 24-3 last week. It was pretty, it was a rough game all around for the Bengals, especially offensively. It was a horrible game. T. Higgins didn't have a single catch, and it was just a slow and sloppy game for them. I know it was some pretty bad weather, and it was an away game, just, starting the season off rough. I do think they bounce back and they get the win. The Ravens looked pretty good last week. Zay Flowers looks like he's going to be a great receiver for Lamar Jackson. He was elusive, speedy, fast, kind of everything we knew he was going to be coming out of college. And I think there's a chance the Ravens win this game. They looked pretty good last week versus the Texans. But I do think the Bengals get on track here. I mean, the Bengals never really look good in week 1. Joe Burrow always has his week 1 struggles. And like I said, I do think they kind of bounce back and they do take this win at home versus the Ravens. And, the Bengals really have, in the last couple of years, have been very good over the Ravens. And I do think that streak continues here. And I do think they beat the Ravens. Well, not really good over the Ravens. I shouldn't say that. But I do think they take the win over the Ravens here and go to 1-1. Next up, the Bills versus the Raiders. Josh Allen looked horrible on Monday night. The offense really did in general. The offensive line was horrible. And I do think watching Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson pressuring Josh Allen off the edge is going to be fun to watch. I'm excited to see that. But I can't bet against the Bills here. I think it is a very hot take to say the Raiders win. I think the Bills defense is going to shut this Raiders offense down. I don't think it's going to be really close. I think the offense goes explosive. I think the secondary for the Raiders really isn't that great this year. And then, Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, I think they both have great games. And I think Josh Allen has a major, major bounce back game at home. And they kind of get things rolling. But the one really big concern is the offensive line for me. They really did not look good. And I know the Jets have a phenomenal defense everywhere. The secondary, the linebackers, the defensive front, everywhere. I know it's great. But I really can't bet against them here. I have the Bills winning this game. And I don't think it's going to be really close. Like I said, I think Josh Allen has a big comeback or a big bounce back week, and I think they take the win over the Raiders. Up next, we have the Chargers versus the Titans, and two teams coming off of Week 1 losses. For the Chargers, they looked great offensively. Defensively, they looked horrible. For the Titans, they looked great defensively and looked horrible offensively. Matt Ryan, I can't remember, I'm drawing a blank, but I'm pretty sure he threw for 3 interceptions. He looked horrible. Offense did not look very good. Derrick Henry looked pretty good. DeAndre Hopkins had a few nice catches as well. I have the Chargers winning this game. I think offensively they continue to do great. I think they put up a lot of points here. I think the secondary for the Titans is not very good at all, and I think they kind of exposed that, or not exposed it, but I think they just keep doing what they've been doing. Herbert to Allen, Herbert to Mike Williams. I think Quentin Johnson could have a big game, and just work that secondary that is not very good against quarterbacks. In terms of defense, I think the Titans offense, like I said, it did not look really good last week, but neither did the Chargers defense. And I think the main key for the Titans here is just give the ball to Derrick Henry. I mean, the Chargers defensive front looked horrible versus a pretty bad offensive line for the Dolphins. And I think that's the main key, is just run it up the middle. The Chargers defensive line looked horrible. And I didn't watch a whole lot of either game, so I'm kind of going off what I've seen and what I've heard. But from what I heard, the Chargers defensive front looked really bad. So I think that's kind of the key for the Titans, is just to give the ball to Derrick Henry, kind of what they do best. I think it'll be interesting to see the secondary versus DeAndre Hopkins. I think J.C. Jackson, who I heard had a horrible game, and I even saw some of that, the pass breakup and the penalty that resulted in the free field goal, and constantly getting torched by Tyreek Hill. So that'll be interesting, but I do have the Chargers winning this one, and I think they finally get rolling defensively, at least in the sense that they are playing a much worse offense, and the secondary does step up a little bit. Next up, we have the Colts taking on the Texans. I have the Colts winning this one. Anthony Richardson and the Colts in general looked pretty good, and for a while, people thought they were going to win. They were up 21-17 over the Jags until they scored 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns, but Anthony Richardson looked good. The offense looked pretty good. Michael Pittman had a really big day. And I think Shane Steichen is going to work wonders in Anthony Richardson. I have them winning this one. C.J. Stroud in the offense looked all right. I mean, that's to be expected. Defensively, they looked pretty good. They contained the Ravens' offense. At least they didn't have, a big, great game or anything. But I do have the Colts winning this game. And then we have the Patriots, my New England Patriots, big Patriots fan, versus the Dolphins. This is going to be a really good game. We have a great Patriots defense that looked really good versus the Eagles last week, versus a Dolphins offense that looked really good versus the Chargers defense last week. And out of no bias, I'm going to go with the Patriots here. I think offensively they really start to roll. We kind of saw that last week. On that final drive, that was an incompletion. That was kind of unfortunate. But, we saw the final 2 drives of the first half for the Patriots both resulted in touchdowns. And I think Mac Jones and this offense really start to roll this upcoming week. The Falcons defense really looked pretty bad last week. And I think the Patriots, hopefully if Onwenu and Strange can come back and they get their 2 guards, I think that'll create a lot more run game, and that'll kind of versify this offense, because the running game for the Patriots last week were horrible. But if, they can get their 2 guards back and they can get the running game going, I think that will really help, and I think it'll take some of the pressure off Mac Jones. But he looked pretty good last week too, so I think it'll be exciting to watch. I'm excited to watch this offense, but the defense is going to be the big question, and if they can stop Tua to the deep ball with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But I'm excited. I mean, the Patriots defense looked phenomenal last week versus the Eagles. They contained that offense, which is very versatile. And I'm excited to see them versus the Dolphins. I think it's a really big game for both teams. It's kind of a statement for the AFC East between who wins that game. I do have the Patriots winning. I hope they do. I think offensively it's a big game for them. Defensively, I think they make another statement. And I'm not saying they're going to lock down Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying they're going to lock down Jalen Waddle, but I do think they make a statement in keeping them contained at least. And the Patriots put up a big win versus the Dolphins. And finally, to wrap up week 2 of the NFL, we have the Browns at Pittsburgh for the Monday Night Football game, and I have the Browns winning this one. Both teams coming off of a pretty big win and loss. The Browns coming off of a big 24-3 win over the Bengals, and the Steelers coming off of a 30-7 loss versus the 49ers. Now, I think both of these teams are going to be good. I think the Steelers, I know it was a bad loss, and I know the offense looked really bad, but I do think they have better days coming. I think Kenny Pickett's going to get a lot better. I think this offense, it's a pretty new offensive line, some big changes there. And I think Kenny Pickett is still getting settled in. The Browns, I think they are going to be very good. We already saw that last week, 24-3 over the Bengals. And I think they keep that momentum going into Monday Night Football and into a win over the Steelers. I think the Browns are one of the most complete teams in the NFL. The offensive line is great. I know Jack Conklin just tore his ACL. I think that's what it was, and he's out for the season now. It's Dwan Jones time. He's going to be an at right tackle. We're going to see him debut versus TJ Watt. That's going to be very interesting to see. But I am excited. I think Nick Chubb's going to have a great game. I think Deshaun Watson's going to get rolling. I know it's a bit of a slow week for him, or a slow game for him last week versus the Bengals, but I think he and Amari Cooper start to find that connection. Elijah Moore was targeted a good bit last week. I think they get a good connection going as well. Defensively, I think that pass rush is going to be a problem for the Steelers' offensive line. Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on Kenny Pickett in the pocket and kind of make him more uncomfortable, similar to what we saw last week versus that 49ers defensive front. And defensively, the Browns are pretty good in the secondary as well, and I do have them getting a win on Monday night versus the Steelers. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any future content. And I know I said I was going to get a weekly review on Monday or Tuesday. That did not happen. Like I said, I was very busy though with school and after school activities. I will start doing that once my sport is done right now. Once I'm done in like the fall, at the end of the fall, start of the winter, I will be able to do those when I'm not in sports after school. Until then, my plan is to maybe do some Saturday videos, maybe like a short couple different Saturday videos on like college football and kind of previewing the games for Sunday the next day. And then throughout Sunday, I will also try to start uploading some YouTube shorts, maybe just on some, big plays and big games going on and what's going on in the football world on Sunday, and just kind of talk about what's going on. So that's probably going to be my plan. And then the one big video will be on Wednesdays, which will be my on Thursdays, which will be my game predictions for each week. So that's kind of my plan for now. But I will try to be consistent on that until I can do the weekly reviews, and then I'll be able to do more actual just videos instead of like shorter videos on like the weekends. But that's my plan for now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of my takes and who is going to win this week. Let me know what you disagree with, what you agree with. If you guys disagree with something, let me know why. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any future content. It's been your boy, Jay Lay, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.